welcome to the Blarney Pilgrims podcast, episode 4.
Top of the podcasting.
Thank you, everyone. That's the first thing to say before we get into the music in this episode, which is awesome, and you're going to love it. It's so great. We're speaking to two legends of Irish music, Mary MacNamara and Eileen O'Brien, with Gerry Mc Keague on guitar, and it's a killer. So, but before we get to that,
We just need to say a humongous thank you. So I don't know if you follow us on social, but if not, during the last 2 weeks we've actually been featured in iTunes new and newsworthy section, and that is incredible for a podcast of our size to be up there with behemoths. We were beside Robert Plant at one stage.
we were ahead of Robert Plant.
Dominic. Well, Dom now has gone and jinxed us, so we probably need more 5-star reviews to keep us up there. I do mean that. If you haven't given us a review or a star, go in. We can't believe we're getting this kind of exposure, and it's only because of you listeners. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, on with the music. And just a quick explainer before we get into this. At the very start of the interview, we're chatting to Mary and Eileen about Paddy and Joe Fitzgerald, who are a couple of very beloved accordion players based in the Melbourne area. They're much loved in Melbourne, much loved in the Australian Irish music scene. They're kind of legendary figures in their own right. So just for the benefit of those of you outside Melbourne who are listening, are quite a lot, that's who we're referring to at the start. And yeah, away we go.
How are we now? Are we okay now? It's A minor and G. 1, 2.
Beautiful. Mary MacNamara and Eileen O'Brien, welcome to the Blarney Pilgrims podcast live at the National Celtic Festival in Portarlington.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in to chat with us. And accompanied on guitar there by Gerry Mc Keague. So I want to talk to you first of all, just a wee bit about, I saw you playing at the Last Jar in Melbourne, and you were playing there with Paddy and Joe Fitzgerald. So I wanted to just get an idea of like your connections with them and.
Well, Paddy and Joe, I come from the same place that Paddy and Joe come from in East Clare.
Mm-hmm.
They come from a place called Carra Hurley. And there's actually another name on the townland where they come. It's near Bodyke. I come from Tulla. A lot of their family came from Knockjames, which would have been near to me in Tulla. Mm. So I would have gone to school with all of their first cousins. I wouldn't have known Paddy and Joe Fitzgerald. They were gone to Australia long before I came on the scene. But my memory of them is coming back to Clare every now and again and playing music and literally causing a storm when they come back. Everybody, people who wouldn't be out for months would come out to hear
Is that right?
Joe play.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And not alone would they come out, they'd stay out all night.
Right.
The sessions would go into the early hours of the morning.
Yeah. So it was lovely to see you there, and it was amazing to kind of hear all four of you together, and just to have this sense of the ease with which you all sort of played together. It was really lovely.
But it was really the music talking that night.
Of course. Yeah.
That's our common thing is music, and when people like us get together, it's the music expresses how we feel.
Yeah.
And it expresses that warmth of meeting each other, and there's almost a sadness there as much as a happiness when you meet people like that, and it's emotional but very happy.
Yeah. Mm. Eileen, can I ask you a bit about your kind of? I mean, it seems strange to ask you about your background because you're both so steeped in the music, but I wanted to ask you a wee bit about your background because before you came into the Last Jar, the week before you both came in, Paddy Fitzgerald announced that you were coming in, and he mentioned your father's role in developing the accordion and the BC accordion and so on. So I wanted to ask you a wee bit about that too, if you could.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you tell me a wee bit about that? Like,
Well, my father, he came from a very musical family. His father, Dinny O'Brien, was a fiddle player and concertina player, and all of his uncles, Dinny's brothers, played fiddle and concertina. And my father, he started off on the fiddle because that was the normal thing to do in the house. And then he played the accordion really by accident when Tommy Kelly, he was a policeman, came to the next village up, which is the village of Portroe. We're from the village of Newtown. The O'Briens are from Newtown, outside Neenah, about 6 or 7 miles outside Neenah, and in County Tipperary. And Tommy Kelly was a brother of the great fiddle player and composer Paddy Kelly from Aughrim in County Galway. And he came to work in the area, and he had the first accordion that was ever seen. I'm talking about way back. My father was born in 1922, so he was only a child when Tommy Kelly came to the region. And my father's home was kind of an open house for music. You know, they always played music, and there were house dances, and people had nothing else at that time. You know, there was nothing else to amuse them. So to save him carrying the accordion up on the bike back up to Portarlington, because it's from Newtown up to Portarlington, it's all hills. It's okay when you're coming down to Newtown, but when you're cycling back up, it was all cycling. There was no cars. So he used to leave the accordion at my father's home, and my father started missing as a child, like with the new toy, and that's how he started playing the accordion. Yeah. So he was trying to play. There was all different at that time in Ireland. There were all accordions coming in from Europe, and they were all different keys. There could be G sharp, there could be C sharp D, there could be D sharp, and he kept searching through them till he kind of could get one that he was trying to figure out a system that he was trying to emulate the fiddle playing.
Right. And when you say system, you mean so is his fingering system?
A fingering system, and it's a different tuning system as well. Okay. It's a BC tuning. And so he started off his musical life as a fiddle player. and listening to fiddle players. So what he was trying to do was transfer the fiddle music, like the rolls and all that, onto the accordion, because that's what he naturally heard in music.
Yeah.
So that's how he ended up with the BC, and everyone's saying, oh, he invented the BC, but he was actually putting the fiddle music and flute music of the locality.
So when you say BC, because that was one of the things I was going to ask you about, is that B as in B the key, C the key, BC?
They call it BC. Mary's brother Andrew now plays the C sharp D. It's a different system of playing.
We all played. I played the BC. No, I didn't. I was a C sharp D player on a BC accordion.
Yeah.
I definitely understand all of that.
Yeah,
And
well,
this is are we talking about a single roll here?
No,
No,
two
two
rows.
rows.
Yes,
Two rows.
yeah.
Yeah, chromatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Right.
we only played the one row. We played the inside row, which was C.
Which was the same as the single row melodeon. A lot of people had the single row melodeon before that, and then when the accordions came in with the two rows, people were still playing only one row in the key of C.
Yeah, absolutely,
As in the same way as they played the melodeon.
Yes.
So my father, he was trying to get to use the two rows.
Yeah.
So anyway, he figured it out in his own way. And then there's another style then that was played by a lot of players as well, and the most famous of those being Joe Cooley, the great accordion player from Peterswell in County Galway, and he played the C sharp D. You know, so they were the two of that era.
Do you have any idea how it spread then? Because if he came up with it,
It spread because he emigrated to America in January 1954, and he made recordings for Columbia Record. The night before, Columbia Records came down to record him in his home in Newtown, and they were released on Columbia. He made three 78s, and that's how. The same as Michael Coleman. He recorded. That's how he became. His style was emulated because his recordings came back from America.
I find that fascinating how that has happened with so many genres, where that one person will have done something, and just because of the way the industry, the money side of the industry was set up, that's what everyone presumed was the norm. Yeah,
well, it was a friend of his, Count Eno Kelly. He lived up in East Galway, and he arranged for Columbia Records to come down because he thought at that time when you emigrated, you never came back.
Yeah, you were gone.
You were gone.
Yeah.
So I suppose he was trying to get my father recorded before he went, because he was
So
afraid he'd never come back.
how long was your dad in New York then?
He was there about 12 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he came back.
They came back. We came back. I was born out there.
You were born
really?
there.
You can tell by the accent. Came back when I was 4. Came back in 90. Yeah. So.
And what about yourself, Mary? In terms of just having a house full of music, was that the same?
With a great house of music, all buttons, all accordions. All my uncles played accordions, and so we all each had an accordion in the house. I was telling a workshop the other evening when we first got the accordion, myself and my sister made typewriters out of them. We turned them over and we had we played office playing typewriters. But we learned everything by ear, and my mother was a fantastic, she played piano and she was a step dancer, but she knew every tune that was out there because she grew up in a most fantastic house of music, and she would have known Eileen's father, Paddy O'Brien. She lived in Ennis, so he would often come by and stay in their house.
Them and stay in their house.
Yeah, it was a music house. All the great musicians, Seamus Ennis and Tommy Peoples and all those would pass through. So my mother had all this music in her head. But in those days, as she said, the females, people weren't interested in educating them as such. They were sent out to work and brought home half their wages. And all her brothers were sent to university and got very well educated, and my mother wasn't. And she was always actually quite bitter about that to the day she died. But she was a very musical person. And to be quite honest with you, she had more in her than all of the whole family put together. So she taught us through didling. And as I said, she was a step dancer. So she would sit on the chair, she would dance the tune, and she would didle the tune. And that tune we played there today, the step dance,
we played it on the concert, the Blackbird.
The Blackbird, she used to didle that and played. And she gave us every nya and every corner of the tune better than any music teacher would give it to you.
Can I
because
be the
it got
silly fella
very
and ask
natural.
what a didle?
What's a didle?
Lilting.
Lilting,
Lilting,
okay.
yeah. Lilting, yeah. And we'd often be upstairs practicing, and if you were going wrong, she'd shout up the stairs. She said, "That's wrong. It's go dee-dum, dee-dee-da."
Would you lilt us that? Can you lilt us that tune? Or
I'm
do
not
you,
very
do you have
good.
it in
Any
you?
tune. There's the girl that can lilt, but I learned all my tunes from lilting. I'm not a very good lilter myself, but we lilt at home.
Yeah.
Right.
We lilt away, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely thing. But I went to the concertina by accident because I had a grandaunt who was my mother's aunt who lived in West Clare, and she was a great concertina player, and my father was interested in getting her back into the concertina. She had arthritis and had stopped playing. So he bought her a cheap German concertina, 2-row, for 10 shillings in Limerick. Gave it to her, and she found it very stiff. And she said, "Here, give it to the young lads, that was us. They'll loosen it out." And I took it, and I'm playing it since. That's what happened.
Yeah, and did you just fall into it and go?
I just started playing. I worked it out myself.
Yeah.
And I was probably doing a lot of things wrong. But it was only 2 rows. You couldn't go too wrong. But like that, I was playing it the same as we would have played the accordions. I was only playing 1 row, and we were in C. But that's all what all the concertina players at home were playing, and was only 1 row.
When you had the tunes in your head.
Oh yeah, all in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'd absorb them, like, you know.
Yeah, all in the head. Yeah.
But we've never actually had anyone lilt before. Could we get a lilt? Did you reckon you
Eileen's
had
very
one
good
there?
to lilt.
Am I?
Oh, you were. You're great.
Thanks very much, Mary.
You're very good.
Well, okay, we'll do Joe Cooley. We'll pay tribute to poor Joe Cooley, the wise maid. Diddle diddle doodle diddle doodle lumpy diddle diddle dum diddle doodle diddle doodle diddle diddle dum dum doodle diddle doodle lumpy diddle diddle dum diddle doodle diddle doodle diddle diddle lumpy diddle doodle diddle skidry diddle doodle diddle dum doodle diddle doodle diddle 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 doodle diddle doodle lumpy diddle diddle dum diddle doodle diddle doodle diddle diddle dum diddle diddle dum diddle 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 dum diddle doodle diddle 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 diddly idle dum, doodle diddle dum, diddle doodle dum, skidry idle doodle dum, daddle doopy idle diddle la, diddle dum, diddle idle doodle la, skidry idle doodle idle dum, dum dum.
Fantastic! Thank you so much.
The Wise
for that.
Maid was the name of that.
Wise Maid, yeah. That's
So
lovely.
what was your learning, and what was your approach to learning lilting? How was that?
I don't learn. I don't lilt.
You don't, you do.
I just did.
Yeah.
Well, you do. You're always lilting. I'm listening to I lilt myself at home, but
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
I'm
But
terrible
it's,
at it too. But
It's quite hard. There used to be an old man who lived across the road from us, and he was an Orangeman, and he used to come over and he would put one of us on his knee, and he would do the Boys of Blue Hill.
oh yeah.
And he would lilt it, but it's extremely hard to. For me, I would do it with my own kids, but not very
Yeah.
well.
It's an
hard.
art.
There's
an
a
art,
vocabulary
yeah.
in there
It's an
that you
art,
have to
yeah.
have.
My
Well,
mother was excellent
Yeah,
at it.
Right.
yeah. Some people
Yeah.
had
She
just
had a
have
good voice as well, yeah.
So Eileen, your mother as well, then your mother's family is a whole other story
Yeah, well,
of
the
sort of
O'Briens,
musical influence,
yeah,
right?
my mother's family then with the series, and they were based in Dublin, and they were all involved in the Pipers Club. So
and
my
cultists as
Coltis as well, yeah. My mother's father, my grandfather Jim Seary, he was a founder member of Coltis, and my uncle Sean Seary was a great piper. He was a student of Leo Rossum's, and he played in the Rossum Quartet as well. Yeah. But you asked me about my father's contribution. Like it wasn't just to me. His greatest contribution were his compositions. You know, I mean, he composed 139 tunes. I'm sure he composed more, but we didn't get them. He used to burn them. He said, "That's no good." And I'm sure they were great tunes. But the two we played the two tunes we played there, the Hills of Larry's Favourite and Patrick's Night. They were two of his compositions.
Right.
And would he write them down?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't read music until he went to America, and he learned how to read music in America. But he learned everything by ear.
Yeah.
You know.
So was it New York that you went to?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about that time?
I do. Well, I was born there, you know, and I remember people more than anything. The people. My father was straight into the music scene in New York, and he was a member of the New York Cayley Band, and the people in that would have been icons like Andy McGann, Paddy Reynolds, Leda Byrne, Felix Dolan, Jerry Wallace. Steve Quinn. There was, they were all the centre of the Larry Redigan. So they were all they were the centre of the music scene there. My father was in that. So they played in a lot of, at that time, there'd be a lot of Gaelic League functions, and they played for feshes and dancing feshes and, everything and anything, yeah.
And then, so for you finding your way to the fiddle, was that from
I was about 11 and a half, and my father just said to me, it's about time you played something, and I was told I was playing the fiddle. Because he loved the fiddle. He loved the fiddle, and he was terrified I played the accordion.
What was your reaction?
I just did what I was told.
Yeah, fair enough. What was it, don't think, would you have had something else in your mind, or you just said, what?
No, well, I did piano. I did piano as well then, along with it.
Right.
Because I did classical all the way up, because at that time there was no way of getting a qualification. Nowadays in Ireland, you can get a qualification in Irish traditional music. You can go and study it in college. But at that time, the only way forward, even to do it as a subject in secondary school, was through the classical route. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... Yeah.
So should we have a tune? Would you like to do another tune?
Just do an East Clare tune, Mary. Something.
Oh God. We could do well, that Gagans that you were doing there today is
yeah.
And then too.
Oh yeah, Dan Breen's, isn't it? Yeah.
There are tunes that come from our neck of the woods.
Yeah,
right.
They're over your side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
G and M.
So Gagans and Dan Breen's.
So as you're getting older and you're kind of growing into the instruments that you're learning, like, so you're both competing, right? And are you both All Ireland champions at some point?
Many moons ago.
Oh, our competing is over.
No, I know, but that's what I mean. Like when you were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was that like as
horrible
for you?
I used to be a nervous wreck.
But that's still such a strong part of the tradition, right? So I'm going back to the FLA in August, and I think we just mentioned you guys are going to too. What role does it play? Do you think, is it a positive thing? Because you said you hated it.
Well, it's just playing on your own and a solo. But playing in, like, Mary's involved with training bands, and that's great.
It's very positive.
It is, yeah.
And it's how you approach it, it's how you deal with it, and it's how you train the children.
How did you approach it when you, like, can you think back to when
I was taking part?
Yeah, when you were taking part.
When I was taking part, I didn't know. I just went from day to day. We went in and we just played. We didn't have anything like the training that the musicians would have today. We actually had no training. I was at home in the kitchen with my mother didling, and just went on stage and did our thing. And the competition was not big.
No,
it was easy win.
Right,
quite honest.
It's a different time.
But today,
serious.
You have to survive all the sharks. It's really tough going today. And training the children today, there's a very high expectancy from all the students and the parents that you train the children to the mark and bring them up there and get them in there. But they're all very good. So it's a kind of the luck of the draw. It's a question of kind of like you might be lucky enough today to win. It's not that you're not good enough to win.
Because the standard is that high.
The standard is that high.
Yeah.
It depends on who's at the other end of the desk, what they like. They might prefer your style to his style, that kind of thing. I focus on training the kids to that standard, but I always say to them, it's only one day, the FLA. Try and focus on your music. Try and concentrate on your style. Okay, you have to do the FLA formula if you want to get some chance of winning. It's a great way of bringing the children up to the standard.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes. After that, it can be very disappointing, and for people,
it's a great thing for them to work towards.
Yeah.
And particularly the Cayley bands and groups. They have groupie Ceol, and I mean that's great for them because it's a group situation, ensemble playing, and it's great. It's great training. Great training for them, and it's a great discipline. It's a great discipline. Then you have trios and duets, which are wonderful as well because, you have solo players, you have solo competitions, but I think it's very important that people learn to blend with other instruments.
Yeah.
Especially to play in a duet, you have to be listening to each other. That's very important. A lot of people don't listen.
Did you ever feel though when you were in that situation that it was too much, that I don't want to do this?
There wasn't any great pressure on us when we were doing it, but there are some kids today now who would prefer not to do it, but most of them that are doing it want to do it. Their parents want them to do it. They want to do it, and it's very But
you see, parents are they're driving them to classes. They're paying for classes. Yeah. They're paying for they all have really good instruments. I mean, I started off on a fiddle that was up in my grandfather's house, an old fiddle, a 3/4 size fiddle that was cleaned up and strings put on it, which probably weren't very expensive strings, and I had to make the best of it.
Yeah.
Like the kids nowadays would have.
You're starting on the best, though.
They'd have very good. They have the very best.
They compete with the instruments as well as
they do. Music. The instruments have to be good. I mean, the if they're playing concertinas or accordions or fiddles, they have to have a good instrument, or they won't be.
But both of you teach, right?
Yeah.
I suppose maybe Eileen, I'll start with you. Do you have a certain philosophy then that you bring to your teaching? Because you do master classes so you teach the whole gamut, right?
Yeah.
Is there a philosophy behind how you teach?
Well, I'm teaching third level now. I'm teaching adults, so I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So
What do you love about it?
I love it because every I have to tailor my class to each individual student.
Right.
It's great, and I could have students from other countries. I teach in the university in Limerick. We're very lucky to have it, and I look forward to going into work because I meet. It's all different, and people from maybe different genres of music, and they want to play Irish music, so it's wonderful. As regards, I did teach other age groups, younger age groups, and like what Mary's saying, it's very people are they're interested in the FLAs and because that's what you have to work towards. And I used to always, my philosophy was, you know, if they were 10 years of age, I said, like, the important thing really is that they're playing music in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
You know, because if they go, it's an entry into any society. You know, if you go to college, like you can, it's a great introduction anywhere, and you make great friends through it as well. You make lifelong friends in
It's
in
funny.
music.
I'm new to playing, and so I have a lot of conversations with people around being new to playing an instrument, and I've never met a single person who has said they've regretted learning an instrument. Every second person says, "I wish I learned when I was a kid."
Well, it's just it's bigger than the tunes. It's like what you were speaking about when you saw Mary and I with the Fitzes the other night, Joe and Paddy.
Yeah.
It was just the joy of seeing them and sitting down playing music with them.
Yeah.
You know, it's that emotional tie as well. You know.
Yeah.
And when Joe sang the other night, it was, so he was singing, and I don't know if it was a Henry Lawson poem, but he was singing the melody, and he was doubling the melody that he was singing, and it was an incredible moment. It was just so right. Yeah, it just felt like you were. That's right. From the soul, like, you know, it's just amazing. Yeah, really amazing. I was wondering about the teaching as well. Like, if you have a very high standard, I'm assuming probably there's still the odd child who has something extra. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Were you just going, this one has got it, like this, you know?
It depends on the way they're handled too, and it depends on their, you know.
Yeah, there are some of them, you'll always know the child that has it. Some of them that, it's not a question of the learning very fast or anything like that, it's just a question of the getting it. And understanding it. They could be the laziest person coming into the room, but you know that they just understand what you're doing with them, and they
see it in their hands too.
Yeah.
No, you see the way they.
Are you seeing a lot of kids, and probably adults too, coming in with the YouTube experience? So they've come in, they've cherry picked their lessons online.
Yeah, Skype.
So
in UL now, a lot of people come into the courses, and I had one girl, she was from Canada there a number of years ago, and when she came into me the first day, and I said, "And where have you been learning?" Oh, she said on Skype from James Kelly. Yeah. She had never met him.
Never met him, but it's still getting that one-to-one feedback.
Yeah. So.
Because I wonder with videos, because learning from I think there's just so many resources out there to learn from a video. I suppose people used to learn from a book, but to learn from a video, you can copy a little bit of the energy and the intonations.
Yeah. Whereas, when I was starting out, I used to go around watching, listening.
Yeah.
I didn't play.
Yeah.
If I went to a flacciole or a festival or something like that, I'd find out where such a fiddle player was, someone that I wanted to go down and see them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bring the fiddle. I just go down and sit down and absorb.
You're watching.
Yeah.
I think
I was spying on them.
Yeah.
I was trying to learn, but that's the way I learned.
Yeah. I suppose we're spoilt now because you can do that. I can go back and watch. Yeah. Well, I suppose anyone that has been recorded, I can go back and watch it, and then you've got apps like the amazing
I never had a tape recorder.
And all
never
that
had
stuff.
a tape recorder.
No, never really.
No.
It's your ears, really. It's your tape
recorder.
Well,
my father told me that he said to me, we used to go down to play in Gary Kennedy on a Friday night, and I would be practicing all week, getting tunes ready. You know, I was about 14 maybe at the time, and I'd be practicing. They had this one and they played this one, and I'd be picking it out by ear, and they played this one. I'd have all those practiced, and we'd go down and he'd play a whole different set. So I'd be sitting there with the fiddle on my lap with a big red face in me. Yeah. And I would come home one night, and I was kind of sulking, I was raging with him, and I said, you didn't play. You heard me practicing. He'd know what I was doing. He'd be listening. I said, you heard me practicing such a one and such a one, and you didn't play one of them. He said to me, your ear, which he was right. I have a very good ear. Thank God, I'm blessed with it. He said, your ear is good enough that you should be able to pick it up the second time round. So I trained myself to try and do that. Yeah. You have to train your ear. Yeah. You have to listen. A lot of people don't listen nowadays. And that's a great. You have to train yourself to listen. Here is talk about listening there.
Well, if you can tell me about listening, because I'm a terrible.
Mary's going to write a book on listening.
Be bestseller.
How would you sum it up? So give me your take on it, because I know I'm a terrible listener.
On what?
On listening.
Nobody listens.
Yep.
Nobody.
All right.
Yeah, even when you're talking to, I mean, we could be deciding here that we're going down to such and such a cafe or something to do tunes or something like that, and inevitably somebody will get it wrong because people are not listening. But in talking about teaching, I would say if I'm teaching a phrase of music to 5-6 people, it could be 16 people. And it might be very, very simple. I will say it and I will play it and I will say it and I will play it and I'll get them to say it. And when they go to play it, then they don't get it right. And you might do it another 6 times and they say, oh, it's AFD. Oh, 15 times later. And it's just that they think they're listening, but they actually are not listening. It's a huge skill, listening. Yeah. I spend a lot of time with my younger students starting out, training them how to listen and going silent myself when they're talking after I've instructed them to do something and they go on to something else and I just go completely silent and after a while say, what's wrong here? We were talking about, I had asked you to do this and say, oh yeah. So, and children today are very overindulged, it's what they want. It's they're not asked to listen. They're not made listen. So and
do you have any tips? Like what? Because I would love to know how to listen better. I try, but then I do that thing.
Yeah, listening is huge, and I think if people listen to it, learn a lot faster. They would, yeah. A lot faster. It's amazing the way. To drive you through the roof.
I'm looking forward to the book coming out.
Well, when I'm old and retired, listening and...
It'll be an audio book, of course, right?
Yeah, a book on listening, yeah. I have another book I'm going to write as well. I can't think of what it is.
I like the idea of a book on listening, though, because I actually... so I used to play a whistle a bit when I was younger, and I stopped for a lot of years, and I'm sort of getting back into it a bit. And I've worked in radio for a long time, so I've done a lot of listening, right? That's, with the headphones on and just kind of really and recording oral histories and things, and listening to music in sessions and trying to feel my way around something that I'm half familiar with. The listening is a very intense experience.
It's like when you do letters. I have to send out a lot of letters I have my own small teaching school, so I have to send out a lot of information through letter, and it's mostly now through email. And I'm here in Australia for the last 2 weeks, and I'm still getting text messages. What night is this concert on? Where have it to be on this? It's all in the letter. People will not. They just open a letter, glance, gone. And I'm putting less and less information on the letters now. And I separate them. So the first paragraph, 2 lines, simple information, move down, big space to the next, just to get, and they still don't read it.
I think it's 6 or 7 words for a headline on a billboard maximum, and anything else is just.
Oh yeah, people won't read it. Yeah. So, and I think that's something that when we were being educated by the nuns, they were tough, but they were good educators. They were good, and listening. You had to listen. You couldn't be dreaming out the window.
Gerry, did you have something you wanted to ask there, or regarding the listening thing? Oh, sorry.
I was just nodding, going, I'm a terrible listener as well, particularly at home. My wife will say stuff like, for my job, I listen. I'm a GP. I listen to people all day. The minute I walk in the door at home, if something happens, I just can't. I have to get Tracy to repeat it again and again. It's terrible, and it's getting worse as time's going on. And I'm actually trying to listen. She'll say, "Look, can you do this, that, and the other?" And I'm like,
but listening to music.
Listening to music's a different.
In music, I would be totally focused on what's around me in my initial, my radius of what's around me.
Yeah.
I would be listening. If, say, Mary's brother Andrew, who's a wonderful accordion player, if we were in a session together now, and Andrew is great for doing little tricks in the accordion, he'd do little unexpected ornaments and things, and I do them back to him the next time, and it's like a conversation, and you're having the crack as well. You don't say a word, but you're having fun at the same time.
I've no idea how you
have to focus, but you have to focus
And there
it's
is a discipline. There is a discipline in the listening.
You have to
like
focus.
For the last 2 weeks, Angela, Usher, Eileen and I have been literally thrown together and on big stages.
We never met Angela until we came out to New Zealand.
So our discipline on stage was we had to literally listen to each other all of the time, every note, and try and pick a happy medium to get to be able to perform
to be in
together.
empathy with one another as well.
And that's. But if I went up there and sat in the middle and I just did my own thing, I said, okay, I'm here. I'm an East Clare concertina player, and I'm going to do To Hell With Ye. I know your tunes, and I go, but no, it is you have to listen and go with the flow.
To blend and
And there are a lot of people in sessions who join in and they hear the tune, they don't listen, and they put their bend in it and turn it upside down.
Yeah, they change the whole dynamic.
Change everything, So that's the listening lecture.
Let's listen. Thanks. Can we listen to another tune, maybe?
You can.
Yeah.
And then we'll repeat it back to you. No, we won't. I won't be able to do it.
We'll play it again if you don't like it. Joe Burke used to say that.
We'll do a couple of jigs.
Do a couple of jigs, Mary. Yeah.
Do your Coming of Spring, maybe?
Yeah, Coming of Spring.
Yeah. And
okay. So we're going to play 2 jigs. The first one is another composition of my father's, and it's called The Coming of Spring. And the second one then is an old traditional jig called The Batter and Ram.
Oh, yeah.
So E minor and G. Yeah.
before we go, I wanted to ask you a wee bit about liturgical music.
Oh,
Because you've
in my spiritual time.
well, yeah, kind of, yeah. Like what's I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, like, so I think liturgical music, Irish music, I think Sean Ariada, and that's that. I mean, where do you begin to do that? How did that come about?
It came about after my father died. He died in 1991, and then the local branch cultists wanted to start a festival in his memory, and called the Éanach Paddy O'Brien. It ran for 10 years. Just you couldn't keep it going because you need full-time employees to keep it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, of course the question came up about an Afran Ascoelga, a mass in Irish, you know, that you'd have a festival mass. So I decided I was going to write music. So then I had to, that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a lot of research trying to find suitable text that I liked as well, and put the music, compose music, and then get a choir together to sing it, and musicians to play as well. So that's how it started.
And when you're looking for text, are you going through different versions of the liturgy and
different versions of, say, prayers in Irish now.
Yeah.
So it was all in Irish.
Yeah.
Prayers and, you know, different translations of psalms and things like that, you know, because, you know, you have all the parts of the mass, like, you know,
yes,
so,
yeah.
I based it around the text.
Yeah.
And trying to because you're writing for voices and music, traditional Irish music instruments, so you're going to stay within certain ranges, and you know that you have something that I was looking for, something that would be compatible with, say, being used in schools afterwards, and which it has been, and being used by other choirs.
Have you? Is it recorded?
Oh, it is, yeah.
It is.
It's in Reading and Gaeltacht. That one was recorded. I did two. So they were both broadcast by Reading and Gaeltacht.
Right.
Yeah, on a number of occasions. Yeah.
Was the second one easier than the first?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was aiming for children in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's totally different approach altogether.
Right.
So, yeah, the first one was very kind of traditional, kind of the construction of the pieces, like, you know, the musical construction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just an did you want to ask something?
Well, it is an absolute pleasure. You're right in that. I was just going to ask about, so both of you are teaching. I wanted to find out where people can get in contact with you if they want to learn from you, where they should go to see you perform. You're going to be at the Fla this year?
Well, I teach of my own small music school at home in Tulla in East Clare.
What's that called?
It's called the Music Room.
Music Room.
Yeah.
And if so, if I look
Tulla.
at Music Room in Tulla, I'll find
Mary
you.
MacNamara, Music Room in Tulla. So I teach children from the age of 5 all the way up to 18 and further. I teach a lot of adults, and I have a lot of adults who come to me from America, from Australia, from England, from Switzerland, from various different countries. Some of them come and spend maybe 5 or 6 weeks in the area and study at the music room with me. They would come to maybe 4 or 5 classes a week for an hour and a half each class, and they decide before they come what they want to study. It's mostly East Clare style music, East Clare tunes, and they would focus on that. So I meet a lot of students like that. I have a lot of adult students from the locality who come just to learn how to play tunes and how to enjoy their music and how to be able to relax when they're playing, not to be kind of panicking about it. And I do a lot of training for Fla, and we do training for exams as well. And I'm available on Mary MacNamara 59 at outlook.ie.
Great, I'll put any links and all that stuff in our show notes, and so people can find you.
And I do Skype lessons as well.
That's the important one for anyone listening in Australia, which is a
Skype.
lot at the moment.
Yeah, and it's going very well. I thought I could never do Skype, but
once you do
it's quite funny. Yeah.
What about yourself, Eileen?
Well, I teach in in the University in Limerick, so I'm on holidays at the moment.
Right.
I also do some teaching with Mary as well.
Teaches 1 day a week for
One
me,
day a week for Mary.
Yeah, okay.
And in the
We're on
meantime,
the go
as well,
all the time.
we're on the go
Yeah,
all the
right.
time.
So go to the website, send the emails, find out where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can we go out on a tune?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Not
taking
at
so
all.
much time
Grand.
out of
No
your day
problem.
for us.
Okay,
Really
Mary.
appreciate that.
Don't mind if we do this bit. Play Joe the Bill Marley's, you know.
Lovely. Yeah.
These are really clear tunes
He's
now.
clear, yeah.
Yeah. So you tell him about him, Mary.
Well, the first one we just called Joe Bands because Joe Ban, who was a lovely whistle player, taught us this tune. And the second one is The Green Gowned Lass.
Well, it doesn't get much better than that, really.
What a pleasure.
Yeah.
I mean, a treat, a real treat to sit with three players of that calibre and to spend an evening at a festival like that. Just, I was speechless. When I listen back to it, I kind of get a bit emotional. It's just a beautiful thing to have.
There are these kind of moments, like I'm only 51, right? But I do have these moments where that was one of them where I kind of thought, I wonder how many more of these I'm going to have in my life. Like a moment of just sitting there, just being in the music and hearing the two players who are so articulate. It's just so lovely. So thank you, Mary, Eileen. That was just a treat. And to Gerry Mc Keague, who only came along to listen, and then was asked, "Do you want to play, Gerry?" And he was like, "Yeah."
Also, I don't know. I just want to say thank you again to all our patrons. It's starting to happen. People are actually thinking, you know what, you guys are doing a good job, and they're putting their hand in their pocket and they're giving us some support, becoming patrons, which is brilliant. Like, honestly, that's just so humbling. So thank you very much. It does make a huge difference to myself and Dom. There's also some extra content over there as well. It's not just all ask. Dom has I mentioned it before, but he has a little blog that happens over there where he discusses different things, give you links to maybe different videos that we discussed during an interview, or
Yeah, and it's mainly a place where I can talk about the questions that I would have asked if I'd been a bit better of an interviewer. That's kind of
What could have been
what could it be?
the blog edition.
Yeah.
So you can find Patreon/Blarney Pilgrims.
Yep. All right. Thanks again to Mary and to Eileen and to the team at the Celtic Festival in Portarlington, to Una McAlinden and to Olivia Halley. And that's it from us.
Good luck.
Hi, my name is Rosa. I'm gonna eat an apple. Please give Dominic and Darren 5 stars. Thank you.